Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, good morning, good afternoon, whatever you're watching this. But good evening, and welcome to Donna Just Being Real. We're going to get into recap clips of Psycho Sarah Boone trial day 1. Recap clips. All right, so we're going to hear the opening statements, and also we're going to listen to the witnesses. So on the witness stand, we have the ex-husband. He's there. Who else? His Jorge Torres' brother, and the property manager, and I believe the neighbor. So we're going to get into that one. And you know what you do is make sure you hit the like button, share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section, and then we'll go from there. If you want to know about this trial, make sure you read the description. All right, so let's get into this trial. Let's start.
Was there anything that you saw or observed that it would impact you or influenced you in any way to have any impact on you? Juror number 3, left to right, first row. Juror number 4, left to right, first row. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, members of the jury, we're going to proceed with opening statements this morning. Both the state and the defense will have the opportunity to present them. I ask that you listen closely to those statements that they're going to provide. But remember, these are not evidence. This is just the party's belief as to what the facts and the evidence will show in this case. After the conclusion of the opening statements, we'll begin with the state's case in chief through witnesses. With that, Mr. J, you may proceed, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what the evidence in this case is going to show you is that this defendant zipped Jorge Torres shot in a suitcase. She was able to do this because at the time of his death, he only weighed 103 pounds. And she did this with the malicious intent to punish him. And then she went up to sleep and left him to take his final breaths on this earth alone. How many breaths those were, we don't know. The evidence is going to show that it was at least for about 15 minutes, because there's going to be 2 videos that the defendant herself took of this event. The evidence is going to show Jorge Torres is dead because in this defendant's judgment, he deserved it. And have a conscious disregard for whether he lived or died, you will see and hear these videos. What I expect you will hear from a video that began at 11:12 p.m., 45 seconds, on February 23rd, 2020, in Orange County, Florida, is a suitcase on the ground, face down, with the zippers facing the floor. You will hear Sarah. The defendant will say, "For everything you've done to me." Sarah. "For everything you've done to me." Sarah. "Fuck you." And then the defendant laughs. Sarah. "Fuck you." And the defendant laughs. Sarah. "Stupid." Sarah. "That's my name. Don't wear it out." Sarah. "I can't fucking breathe, baby. Seriously." "Yeah. That's what you do when you choke me." Sarah. 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 The defendant laughs again. Sarah, "I can't breathe, babe." She laughs again. "That's on you." Sarah, "I can't breathe." She laughs again. Unintelligible words. And I would submit the evidence is going to show, because of the intoxication from alcohol, is the next thing she says. Sarah, 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 "I can't breathe, baby." That's what I feel like when you cheat on me. Sarah, "Fuck you." "I can't fucking breathe, Sarah." "You should probably shut the fuck up." Sarah, "Shh," is the last thing you will hear the defendant say to Mr. Torres as he is face down, zipped shut in a suitcase. That, again, began at 11:12:45 and lasts just over 2 minutes. At 11:23 and 3 seconds p.m., there's a second 22-second video, and it's the defendant zooming in on the suitcase. And all you hear during this 22 seconds after he's been in this suitcase since at least 11:12 p.m. is one more time, Sarah. How did we get to this point where 103-pound Jorge Torres gets put into this suitcase and left to die? Well, the next morning, the defendant wakes up, late morning, perhaps early afternoon, somewhere in this time range, several hours later. And she goes downstairs, and she doesn't see George anywhere, Torres, and eventually realizes, oh my God, he's in the suitcase. The first thing she does after taking him out, and I believe you will hear a description by the defendant saying, took his little legs out. At some point she makes that statement and tries to resuscitate him. Hears gurgling as she presses down on his 103-pound chest, forcing whatever air was trapped in there out and gurgling. Then the next thing she does is she doesn't call 911. She calls Brian Boone. Who's Brian Boone? Brian Boone is her ex-husband. They share a child in common. And this date, February 24th, 2020, is a Monday. It's a normal work day for most people. School day for their child that they share in common. But after they got divorced, the arrangement was every other weekend, they'll co-parent. And that weekend included Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's that free schedule. And then Monday through Tuesdays, their child would be her responsibility. And Wednesdays and Thursdays, their child would be Mr. Brian Boone's responsibility. So February 23rd, 2020 was a Sunday. Now he's led into Monday. Mr. Boone had been trying actually to contact the defendant several times that morning because he just wanted to confirm she was going to get their child after school that day. And there had been a history of reliability issues on that issue on her part. So you will see in the phone records, he calls her. Then she finally calls him back instead of calling 911. And being the nice co-parent that he is, he comes over. It's a short drive, about 10 minutes. And as she's explaining to him what the heck is going on, he peeks in through the front door of her townhouse, which allows you a view all the way to the back sliding glass door. You're going to see that her kitchen is off to the right, but there's a doorway that you can see all the way through. Then on the back side of the kitchen in the breakfast room area, there's cables and stuff. There's also some blue legs sticking out in view. Brian Boone says, check please. You need to call 911. He doesn't set foot into that townhouse. He does wait outside though, being the good co-parent that he has been. So now, after having first called her ex-husband, after having first waited for Brian Boone to come over, the defendant makes the 911 call. What you will not hear are tears. What you will not hear is sorrow. You will hear a certain level of concern. My boyfriend and I were playing last night. Put him in a suitcase, and we were playing hide and seek kind of thing. I fell asleep. Found him dead in the suitcase this morning. I don't know what happened. He had blood coming out of his mouth. Don't know if it was an aneurysm. Pulled him out of the suitcase, tried to give him CPR. He was in the suitcase, and I fell asleep. He's not awake. He's purple. He's not breathing. There's some instructions about how to do CPR given to her, asking about whether an AED is available to shock his heart. It's too late. He's cold, he's stiff, he's purple. We were playing hide and seek. This is horrible. This is horrific what happened. Like, what happened? We were playing hide and seek last night and I fell asleep. So she mentions that there was blood coming out of his mouth. And his body, like all bodies in his death, was taken to the 9th District Medical Examiner's office in autopsy. What the doctor found was what you would expect after being left in a suitcase. crumpled up in the fetal position, he passed from positional asphyxiation, meaning like you're not going to get full rest when you're crumpled up like an accordion, and environmental suffocation. You don't have to have a plastic bag over your head, tape shut with a full roll of duct tape to seal it off 100% and be worthy of the vacuum of space to environmentally suffocate. It's close enough. You can't get the oxygen and the CO2 coming in and out of your environment. But she also did notice, yeah, he suffered from blunt force trauma on his torso, in his face, his mouth. She'll use words like contusion, will help her explain contusions and bruises. She'll use words like hematomas, will help her understand for you all that means bleeding under the skin and blood, what you expect from bruises, that's why they're running through. But he had all this additional trauma. He had trauma on his fingers as well. So now, the sheriff's office, Orange County Fire Rescue show up. When the defendant interacts with the first patrol officer, you'll see and hear that body-worn camera. And it's more of the same as what we heard on the 911 call. I see. It was good. I fell asleep. I don't know what happened. A few hours later, the detectives from the homicide unit at the Orange County Sheriff's Office approach her and are ready to interview her after doing some initial things, which includes grabbing her cell phone off of a counter that was found by a suitcase in Mr. Torres and giving it to one of their digital forensic examiners who we'll hear from later in the trial. You know why. But it's time to give a first interview with the defendant. So they do a first interview with the defendant in one of their unmarked detective patrol cars there on the scene. And the basics of this remain the same, but there's a little more elaboration, as you would expect from trained detectives versus getting the 911 call taken. But the basics of what the defendant tells them is we had wine, we painted, we drew, we did puzzles. The particular wine we had was a Chardonnay from the Woodbridge winery. The bottles, plural, are in the trash. We started about 4 p.m. after Mr. Torres went to the store. Puzzles, art, listening to music, enjoying each other's company. We were just literally just enjoying one another's company. The other bottle of wine that was left over from Boone wasn't even half full. So the description she is saying is one bottle of wine and plus a fraction of a bottle of wine left over from the night before. Ladies and gentlemen, not all bottles of wine are made the same. Many of us may envision what you would expect at a restaurant. Those are 750s, 750 milliliters. I'll let that. Bottles of wine that were recovered from the defendant's trash can were 1.5 liters. So the equivalent of 2 standard bottles of wine. A 1.5 liter bottle of wine is 50 ounces. Given that a standard serving of wine is 5 ounces, you can begin to do the math. And here's receipts. The day before, Saturday, February 22nd, 2020, there is a receipt from Publix for a bottle of Woodbridge wine for $9.74. And then Sunday at 12:17 p.m., there is another receipt for $9.74 for a Woodbridge Chardonnay bottle of wine. And then at about 5:30 in the afternoon on February 23rd, again, there is another receipt for the same bottle of wine for the same price. And those 2 bottles of wine were recovered. They're going to be produced to you in evidence, and you will see that they are, in fact, Magnum bottles of wine. So that's the context that we're dealing with when we hear things like, we only had 1 bottle of wine, and we finished what was left in the bottle of wine from before. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's 2 1.5 liters that apparently were consumed by a 103-pound man and the defendant, who is in the same weight class.
2 1.5 liters.
Plus, if you believe that.
Yeah, they was having a, yeah.
That's a lot of wine.
Yeah.
I can see it was 2 750 milliliters, which equals 1.5 liters. They had over 3 liters of wine. That's a lot of wine.
They're going to show the pictures later. We're going to get into that.
Yeah, because I was thinking it was just 1 bottle, 750 milliliters of wine. Okay, cool. But 3 liters of wine, that's a lot of wine. Oh, you're going to die drinking that.
Ooh. Resume.
Defendant and the decedent would leave leftover wine from any given day, any additional wine that was remaining from the 1.5 liters from Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot of wine. So in that context, we were just
Isn't that what you just said, Jack? Woo-hoo.
Yeah,
That's a lot of wine.
that's a buttload of wine.
That's like college kids drinking kegs, right? Hmm. All right, resume.
Having wine, enjoying each other's company. At one point, we play hide and seek. She says she didn't zip it up all the way. There was enough room, in her words again, there was enough room for his little fingers to get out. We were still having a good time and whatever. And basically, Mr. Torres is stressing out about jobs, his ex-wife, about money. And so they're just doing puzzles and doing things to keep his mind off of it, doing art, playing with the dogs, dancing with the dogs, playing hide and seek. We were always trying to outdo each other where we could find each other the best. When they started playing hide and seek, she went up to the shower and then got tired of hanging out in the shower and came down. And that's when she found him playing around in the suitcase. We both thought it was funny. I'm going to zip you up. Two little fingers could stick out. And she went upstairs thinking, he'll get out. We're going to have sex and go to sleep and call it a day. It was a good day. She insists that they had wine, but we're not drunk. You will be able to assess that for yourselves when you hear the recording she made. No ill will between us last night. Last argument, maybe last week. Don't really argue. We came home, drink, smoke, did art, listen to music, play with the dogs. We drink what we can afford. We used to be able to afford liquor, but now we can only afford wine. And that's how that day ends with the police. She goes and sleeps and stays at her ex-husband's house the night of February 24th and 25th. What they are doing, and by they I mean the Orange County Sheriff's Office, in part, that's when they discover the two videos that I just described for you. And there's other things in the phone, which I will discuss with you in a little bit. But she's summoned in for another interview, and she sits down and gives another interview on February 25th, now Tuesday. She does describe past instances of violence. You're going to hear about that. She's going to say, Mr. Torres had hit her with a curtain rod about a month ago. Since then, though, we've been good. I've been good. She describes that he comes at her all the time. He comes at me. So it's either I flee or I try to go upstairs and go to sleep. That's usually what it is. I don't know if you talk to Brian, her husband, about any of that, but most of the time I flee and I go over there. There's a discussion about why she stays with him, and you'll hear that for yourself. She will say that she doesn't really want to drink. She just takes an occasional drink. She drinks to placate him, Mr. Torres. She says that you're going to see phone videos of Mr. Torres smashing her TV in the past, like a month earlier. You may see that too. But she doesn't get drunk. When she drinks, she likes being non-compos mentis, her words, not mine, having her wits about herself. Then she gets to the hide and seek again and describes that they've played it 3 times before, but had never zipped one another shut in it before. And they were really just running out of places to hide because it's just a townhome. She does not remember, according to her, she does not remember taking any photos or videos of the night's events. At this point, they ask her, well, would you like to see it? And she says, I can't watch this. I flipped him over, and that's where it was. Guys, this is killing me right now. That's why I flipped it over between the 2 videos. I didn't do anything intentional. Discussion over whether he had enough room to get any of his fingers out from the zipper. My intention was not to leave him there. We both got in there. Both of us were in there. When she went upstairs, my plan was not to, quote, he'll be up here any minute. My plan wasn't to leave him in the suitcase. Why is all this going on? It's the drinking. That's what it is. It's the drinking. I thought he was okay. Guys, that's how we were with each other. Nobody understands our relationship. This whole suitcase thing never happened before, though she described it happening before. I'll never drink alcohol again. She insists that she has no injuries on her, and you don't have to take her word for it because they took photographs of her and there were no injuries on her. She insists over and over that there was no violence that day. It's like, okay, we're in a good place right now. Ask her about saying fuck you to Mr. Torres. Well, that's just being playful and having a good day. Everybody's having a good day. I didn't touch him, nor did he touch me.
Her famous words. What is it? Dr. Pepper and a good day. Good day and Dr. Pepper. I am so sick and tired of hearing those words from her. Resume.
Her words. What else is found on her phone? There's a conversation between Mr. Torres' brother, and again, nobody knows who's using these phones at the time text messages are sent in these records that you're going to see. But it's indicated that there's a communication between one of the decedent's brothers and the owner of the phone that was taken that belongs to Miss Boone. The text from the brother is, "Yo, my daughter told me what you did, Sarah. I don't want you around any of my daughters or nieces, nephews." And that's Christmas 2019, just under 2 months before this event. She replies, or the person using her device at this time, "Ugh, your quote unquote dad hit me in the face." The next text is, "Hide and seek, I shall." January 13th, there's another heated discussion. She describes it on January 13th in a text to Mo, the brother again. "It's a Torres thing. Boo." Sends a picture. "Keep the fugly creep out too. It's still fugly. Lose." The brother responds, "Please do something with yourself, Sarah. God bless you." The defendant's response, "And bless you and all of you too. I'll get, in all capitals, rid of him. Then it'll be, in all capitals, better. Ugh, Torres," referring to Mr. Torres, getting rid of. And that's the case. That's what the evidence is going to show. But we, the state of Florida, and the members of the jury in our journey through this case, we're all going to come up to a door that says, "Danger, keep out, stay away, by court order." And that door says, "The defendant's history with the victim is a door we shall not enter without permission and invitation. Halloween's in like 13 days. Part of the vampire lore is vampires can't come get you in your house." Why? Participate during this trial. We're going to be invited in to the defendant's past relationship with the previous couple of years with Mr. Torres. And as we come inside this room, at her beckoning, we're going to have things pointed out that she would like us to focus on. And you're going to hear the first night the defendant met the decedent, Mr. Torres, he smashes her phone, punches her. It's the first time in her life she'd ever been punched. That's testimony will be. And he made her curl up in a fetal position on her own porch for 4 hours. And she was only able to escape this situation when he fell asleep. I expect that you're going to hear that Mr. Torres is an alcoholic. I expect you may hear his high score on his blood alcohol level was a 342 once when he got treated at the hospital. This is a man who had serious alcohol problems, and I expect you're going to hear about that. Despite that first date, and this is going to tie into some other things that I expect could possibly come in. Despite that first date, despite at that point in time of this first date not having a relationship, emotional ties, and the things that come along with a relationship that make it harder to break off a relationship, it's one thing to have a bad first date, it's another thing to end a 25-year marriage. Despite that first date, there's a second and a third. Now, these days are at bars, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, and it just typically ends up, she's going to tell you, I suspect, or you're going to hear that she said, one way or another. It's one thing or the other. Like, I asked a dude for a cigarette. Mr. Torres flips out, and I'm going to pay the price. Just things like that. You're going to hear, potentially see, yes, there were injuries that the defendant is going to attribute to the victim causing her. Black eyes, cuts in the face, perhaps from the curtain rod incident that was mentioned in the police interview happening about a month before this. bloody ear, a stab wound in the leg, which is perhaps described as sword fighting, playing around in that equipment. But nonetheless, I suspect you're going to hear and see a lot about their past history. And at the end, if this occurs, if this comes in, the state is going to have the opportunity to take the lead of the tour in this room labeled the defendant and the victim's past history. And I'm not going to go into that now. If this all comes to fruit, the blooms on the tree during the trial, we'll discuss it at the end where it's more appropriate. But I'm asking you to not rush to judgment until you hear all of the evidence in the case. And then apply whether or not these past instances have anything to do with what happened on February 23rd. Now, like a home inspector, there are experts to come in and kind of help walk everybody through this room labeled the defendant and the victim's past relationship. I suspect there's a chance you may hear from some experts, psychologists and psychiatrists, about battered spouse syndrome. The state is not challenging in any way that battered spouse syndrome exists. It's well recognized, the experts will tell you all about it. Not disputing that at all. But there's some things that we would hope that you pay attention to during all the testimony, if there is any, about this subject matter. One is that it's not actually a recognized diagnosis in the Bible that they use in mental health called DSM-5 Diagnostic Statistical Manual, version 5, and I think it's text revision, something like that. What it is, and what they describe it as, is kind of a component of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. But because it's not actually in the book, it's like a recipe book. It's like our statute books for lawyers. You go into this book and say you have a particular disorder or diagnosis. It'll say, well, all three, it means these three elements, like elements of crime. Some of these elements have to be prevalent for a certain amount of time, so on and so forth. You imagine it's a cookbook. Gives you the recipe for a diagnosis. But because it's not in the cookbook, you may get some disagreement about what it means between experts, because it's kind of like grandma's recipe handed down from generation to generation without being right. But what I expect you'll hear is, it's important for people who don't have experience in certain abusive relationships that are violent to understand the control that can be exerted over on an intimate partner by the other one, isolation, psychological violence, emotional violence, physical violence, sexual violence, which I suspect will be described for you as well by the defendant, perpetrated on her by the deceiver. You'll hear about all this. And what it ties into at the end of the day, after we talk about this during jury selection, is if there is a self-defense instruction read to you, this is to help you understand what an objective and reasonable person in the circumstances would do. Because years ago, we've gotten better as a society. So years ago, when this was first being researched, the question would be, why don't you leave? In battered spouse syndrome, the testimony from experts help explain those things to people. Well, it's not that easy. You got to look at what's going on in the relationship, the isolation, control, so on and so forth. And that explains why you wouldn't leave. Well, now, but turning to the facts of our case, what you're going to decide the facts are is ordinary, objective, reasonable person in those circumstances taking those actions if you get a self-defense instruction part of that. That's what it's used for. It's not used for explaining the subjective beliefs at one point. What you will also hear about these things is, just like any other doctor or any expert, like a home inspector. If a home inspector's report was based solely on the person who's trying to sell the house, what they say about the house, great shape. I rewired the entire thing. Brand new JDC pipes. This sucker's good to go. I agree with this. You're not going to take that home inspector's report unless they lift the hood, take the tires, do all the things that the box on here, in the car has done. You want an expert to get reliable information. The expert's opinion is only as good as the information that he or she relies on. They would say, yeah, you gotta take into account the credibility of the person who's giving you the story. Even if it's the patient, the client that is saying all these things happen to her. You gotta find proper information. You have to check reliability. Particularly in circumstances like you're discussing. mean that that's constantly applies. Some people can go home and fight like cats and dogs. And that's just their day, and they get over it, they live their life, fight another day. Their cycle just spins like that. So just because you hear about those things, what the experts will tell you, doesn't mean that it necessarily applies. If this testimony comes in, I expect that Dr. Harper will say it applies to the student. But we'll talk to her about what she relied upon to make that conclusion. We'll talk to her about some other things and take that journey together. But at the end of the day, after you hear all of the evidence in this case, particularly straight from the horse's mouth, the video, where you don't have to rely upon the credibility of anything other than your own two eyes and your own two ears, the state's message can return a guilty verdict for second-degree murder. What the evidence is going to show is that the defendant killed Mr. Torres because she decided he deserved it. Not because the evidence will show an objective, reasonable person in her circumstances needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. J. Any opening remarks by the defense?
Judge, can we invoke the rule? It has been.
I've already advised the witnesses.
Okay, the rule of sequestration will be invoked. Thank you. You may proceed, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Appreciate y'all being here. I was introduced before. My name is James Owens, and I represent Sarah Boone, along with Tony Pearson and Kevin Beck. Now, this is going to be several days long. Obviously, today, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're not sure, but we're trying to make arrangements for witnesses to find expert witnesses and whatnot, and we'll know more probably at the end of the day and Monday, so we can plan. But I know your focus is on this case because you took a note. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no higher call than the right of way. No higher call than the right of way. And we're going to ask you about this story. And find Sarah Boone not guilty because she was justified in the force that she used to defend herself. If that force was reasonable under the circumstances that existed between Sarah Boone and George Torres. Sarah Boone and George Torres were down and out, as you can be. Their life centered around alcohol. Both of them suffered from, used to be called alcoholism, now it's called alcohol abuse syndrome. And so day to day, they struggle with the use of alcohol. You can imagine it. It affected their jobs. It affected keeping employment. It affected even getting a job. As codependent as you can be towards each other. And you're going to learn with all that was domestic violence. And that George Torres physically abused Sarah Boone. And she suffered from the effects, the psychological effects that one suffers from repeat violence from an intimate partner. They were together over 3 years. And there were several prior incidences of violence. We've got the photographs. There were incidences where police were called who took photographs. So you're going to be able to see the evidence. And we believe the court will instruct you at the end when you're considering self-defense, which we call justifiable use of non-deadly force or justifiable use of deadly force, that you can consider the prior acts, the history of violence, the prior difficulties that the parties had, and considering her set of circumstances that she was faced with in making the decision to use reasonable force under the circumstances. And the most important thing I can tell you here today is keep an open mind. There's two sides to every story. You're going to hear the state's side in attempting to paint her a certain way, as they've done here today in opening statement. And then you're going to hear another side. And you're going to have to weigh that. All the evidence, the credibility of the witnesses, the photographs, the videotapes, and come to a conclusion. Now let's talk about this day, February 23rd of 2020, the date of this event. This case has been pending for some time. Here we are, October 2024. I think the evidence is going to show that they had purchased some wine the day before, but they hadn't finished all of that. So it was in the refrigerator. Many times that's how they start their day. At some point, you're going to see a video from Publix, from where they live. I believe it's Winter Park. But Publix was not too far from their apartment complex. And they took their car, they drove over there. So you're going to see a videotape from Publix of them both going in the store about noon, and they come out with one of those larger bottles of the wine. And then, of course, there's a receipt, and the bottles are in the garbage can. Of course, there obviously is an attraction between the two. And as everybody knows, couples can have great times where things click, everybody gets along, and then we can have episodes of disagreement. And how are those resolved? Really, that's what this is about. How are disagreements resolved? But George was very jealous of Sarah. And you're going to hear the testimony about that. And that he cannot, in certain situations, he can be very charming. But when his level of intoxication gets to a certain level, is when he gets sad, moody, and a lot of times eventually it involved forcible sex with Sarah Boone or actual physical violence against her.
I have to pause for a second. So we're saying that, are you alluding to that he SA her? Oh boy, Sarah. Wow. All right, let's get back to it, ladies and gentlemen.
They bought the wine. It's a simple life. They don't have much money, but they both like art. They did that for a while. They both like puzzles. They did that for a while. Well, about 5 or so, the wine bottle was gone. And George had said, I want to go get some cigarettes. So there's a convenience store right close by their apartment complex. And Sarah thought he was just going to walk over there and get cigarettes and come back. But no, what he did was he got her keys, he got her debit card, and he went over to the Publix and he got another bottle. And I think that was about 5:30, something like that. And again, there'll be the Publix video showing him going in and going out, and there'll be a receipt for the purchase of that bottle, and then they'll keep that bottle. Will be in the garbage can along with the other bottle. Well, when he comes in with the second bottle, Sarah knows this is not good. She knows this means he's going to get to another level of intoxication. So Sarah's concerned. So she attempts to placate him, keep him busy, keep him in a good mood. They drink that bottle, but she drinks as well. And at some point, they're intoxicated at a high level.
Almost 15 years ago, I started a relationship coaching practice.
As some people do when they're drunk, they get silly. And they decide to play a game of hide and seek. She goes upstairs, their bedroom's upstairs, to the shower and waits for a period of time. And he doesn't come to her. At some point, she gets cold, she gets tired. She wants to go to sleep. Well, maybe we got it mixed up. Where is he? So she goes downstairs, and they had gotten a suitcase down a week or so ago. It's an old suitcase that they were going to donate to Helping Hands or Goodwill or somebody, and they were putting some items in there. And it's a broken down suitcase. It's a large suitcase. They both weigh about 100 pounds. And they don't eat good. Malnourished to a large degree. But the pull handle is broken off. And they've attached a little paper clip It's got the rubber around it, and that's how they move back and forth. Well, she comes down the steps, she sees him getting in and settling in the suitcase. So she walks over there, and they see each other, they smile and laugh, and she zips him up. And she zips him up, and they laugh for a while. And they carry on. She sits on the couch, and at some point he says, "I can't breathe." Now, his face is facing the zipper, and she's got 2 or 3 inches that she's opened it. And she doesn't know. They're intoxicated. She doesn't know whether he's just saying that to try to get her to get him out or what. But he's a captive audience. Physically, they're the same size, but he's much stronger than her. If they got in a fist fight, he would win 100 times out of 100. But she's got him now. He claims he can't get out. He has to sit and listen. It's a unique form of physical restraint. And so she lets him have it. Says things she shouldn't say. You'll see the video. It's about 2 minutes long. She videotapes it. She sits on the couch and turns her phone on and videotapes it for about 2 minutes. There's another video that's approximately 11 minutes later. The first video, the suitcase is flipped upside down. The zippers are off. 11 minutes later, Sarah has flipped it right side up. Again, open for him to get out. And it's only 22 seconds. And you hear George say, "Sarah." And that's it. Now, the key to the case is that 11 minutes. And what happened during that 11 minutes. Okay? That is the key to this case. Sarah Boone will take the stand. She will explain what happened. She will explain why it happened. The evidence will show that she was justified.
When Psycho Sarah get on the stand, prosecution is gonna rip her. This is gonna be very interesting. Reason. After this closing, we're gonna get into the witnesses. So this is defense. Said closing. Excuse me. This is defense opening, and when they're done, then we're gonna get into the witnesses. Reason. And one of the witnesses will be Psycho Sarah's ex-husband. No, that's not the picture. Where is he? There he goes. All right, resume.
And the action she took to prevent an attack from Jorge Torres, which the law acknowledges that every one of us has a right to invoke, the right of self-defense. You can hear from the medical examiner. She is going to tell you about some bruising on Jorge Torres. Of course, he was in the suitcase a while, deceased, we believe. And that changes things a little bit, as the medical examiner will explain, but there's some bruising. Sarah's going to explain that to you, why that happened, what were the circumstances surrounding that, involving with that. Her son comes and stays with him from time to time. He has his own room. He has several of his things there, and there's a bat downstairs. The same bat that Jorge Torres used, and there's a video where George is threatening Sarah, and he's swinging the bat at the TV about as hard as he can. And he does it about 6 or 7 times. You'll see it. Sarah's recording it. And it's during an argument, and he's trying to intimidate her. Sarah loved you. You're going to hear why women Don't leave.
Across the world, over 110 million people have been.
Why women don't leave. And you're going to hear about Sarah Boone and her struggles, her mental health struggles. Sarah didn't know anything kid. The prosecutor mentioned she wanted him to die. Farthest from the truth, she loved her man. She hated the abuse. She couldn't leave. She tried. She tried taking him out 6 or 7 times. He kept coming back. She changed the locks. He kept coming back. She didn't have the family. She didn't have the support. She was weak, vulnerable. You're going to hear it all. You got to take that all into account to try to understand what happened and the circumstances surrounding this tumultuous relationship. Now you're going to find that Sarah's not perfect. And, you know, she goes, as many of us do when we drink too much, and you sleep in. She slept in. 11, 12, 1, somewhere around there. She moseys downstairs looking for George. She thought he was on the computer looking for a job. She looked outside, maybe he's out smoking a cigarette, and she sees the suitcase. She unzips it. She gets him out. He's purple. She tries her best to do some CPR. She freaks out. The only family she's got is her ex-husband, really. She relies on him. As the prosecutor said, a lot of times she'll flee to her ex-husband's house, where her son is at, Lucas. It's the only thing she knows to do. She was kind of a sheltered daughter when she was younger. She's smart, but she's not worldly. And she calls Brian. What do I do? He said, I'm coming over. Please come over. He's about 5 minutes away. And she calls him again within a couple of minutes. Yeah, I'm on the way. He gets there. He walks in the foyer and sees his legs. And she called 911. She calls 911 within a minute, 2. Detective Rodriguez arrives. You know, they got the body cam now, so it's recorded. So you're going to hear Sarah talking. But Sarah's freaking out. Sarah's thinking, and I'm somehow responsible. Eventually, she gives a statement to law enforcement. She gives one to Detective or Debbie Rodriguez. Of course, she's not the homicide investigator. She's just responding. She's the first responder. And, you know, they know what to do. They try to assess the situation. They start putting the tape out. And then they call for the homicide investigators to come, which takes a little time. So she gets a statement from Sarah. Eventually, the homicide detectives get a statement from Sarah and one of the unmarked squad cars. And it's recorded. They hear that. And then the next day, they take Sarah's phone. Sarah gives them the phone, signs the consent to take the phone, take it to, they have a phone extraction people at the sheriff's department where they can take out all the data, all your phone calls, text messages, photographs, videos, all that. And they find these 2 videos. Sarah's not aware. She doesn't remember making the video. You can imagine. She gives them the phone. Well, she makes no attempts to do anything other than, here's the phone. So they tell her, you're going to get your phone back tomorrow. We'll bring it back to you tomorrow. Well, they end up having a conversation with the female detective, homicide detective, Casa is her name, Chelsea Casa. And they end up, Deputy Casa was pregnant, or Detective Casa was pregnant. So they end up, hey, we're not going to bring your phone. I'm not feeling good. Pregnant. Can you come to the sheriff's department?
Welcome back to the Liz Wheeler Show. This is Blair Fleming. Blair.
That was what I was going, that's what they told me I was going to the sheriff's department for. Well, instead, it was an interrogation. And they were going to arrest her. They made their mind up on it. And they were going to confront her and try to get her to confess based on the 2 videos. And so there's approximately a 2-hour interrogation that was on the 25th in the afternoon when she got there to get her phone. They said, well, we got to come up here. We need to talk to you. And they got her in the room. It's a small room, but it's being videotaped and audio taped. And it goes on for about 2 hours of them trying to get a confession to murder. And it doesn't happen. But Sarah lies. She's scared. She can tell they're trying to pin her on this, that this was some kind of intentional act, and it was not. So she lies. She's not a lawyer. She doesn't know about self-defense. She doesn't understand she has a lawful right to defend herself. She doesn't understand that she's justified in using the force that she used. She doesn't. I wasn't there to advise her. No lawyer was there. So she lied. And you're going to hear that. So you're going to have to balance that versus her taking the stand and testifying before you. And we simply ask that you look for the evidence of cooperation of her testimony. It's going to be later, probably next week. The judges will tell you in reading instruction on evaluating a witness's credibility. And they'll talk about wobblers to evidence, other evidence that's consistent with the testimony that Sarah Boone gave. So you're going to have to weigh that in her testimony. Now, self-defense, we talked about it in jury selection, usually a gun, some deadly weapon. The suitcase in this case was a physical restraint or a blocking of an attack, but it was unconventional. Self-defense nonetheless. Now, as I said, the struggles that occurred, many of them involve the police. So you're going to actually hear from some of the police officers. Maybe some body cam footage. You're going to see some photographs that they took of the injuries to Sarah Boone. In some of the videos you may see of her in a very happy, joyful type of thing. Well, number one, she's intoxicated. Number two, she's safe, at least a bit. So her attitude is not one of distress. We're here today, full, packed courtroom. The training's here, but you're the most important people. Because you've got to decide this case honestly, fairly, and according to the law. And we talked about the 2 biggest principles from the Constitution that apply. In this case, and in every case in which a citizen like Sarah Boone is brought into a courtroom and accused of a crime. The first is, you as a juror must presume or believe that Sarah is innocent. And that belief stays with you throughout the entire trial. Because of that, she doesn't have to prove anything. That's why the state went first in jury selection. That's why the state went first today. That's why the state will go first putting on their case. They have the burden of proof, and it's the highest burden we recognize in any type of litigation in this country. Proof beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. You are going to have doubts about this case. But the most important thing is not to rush the judgment, to keep an open mind and understand there's 2 sides to this case. There's their side and there's our side. So you can't form any fixed opinions early on. That's hard to do, as Mr. Henderson said in jury selection. That's extremely hard to do. Now you're going to hear some testimony. There's been mention of experts. Battered women's experiences affect her perception of imminent danger. Battered women's experiences affect her perception of imminent danger. Victims of repeat violence may fear death in a situation others would not. After hearing both sides of this case, we're confident you're going to have a reasonable doubt. And we're going to ask you to follow the law and do justice in this case. And find Sarah Boone not guilty, because it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The party's break for a moment.
For both fiction, non-fiction, short stories, full manuscripts, I use pro-writing aid several times.
You've been listening to opening arguments in the suitcase murder trial. We do know that the prosecution went first. The defense just delivered their opening statement as well. And now we are waiting to see what happens next. Likely going to break for lunch, I would assume, at this point. But we have heard arguments from the prosecution and the defense now, kind of laying out their case and telling them.
Okay, now we're going to get into the first witness. If I'm correct, this is going to be Torres' brother. Okay, we're getting into witnesses now. Reason.
Mr. Torres, raise your right hand, please. More, please. You swear or affirm the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Sir, good morning. You could be seated. And once seated, if you would state and spell your name for the record for us, please.
Juan Torres, Juantorres.
Thank you, sir. You may inquire, Mr. Cacciatore.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can you tell us how it is that you know George Torres?
He's my older brother.
And how many siblings do you have?
Six or seven.
And how long has your family resided here in the Central Florida area?
20 plus years.
And before residing in the Central Florida area, were you guys in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania?
Yes, sir. And Massachusetts.
Your brother, how often, your brother George, that is, how often would you talk with him?
Often we talk, I'd say on a weekly basis.
And how far away did you live from George?
About 5-10 minutes, very close.
Would you see him pretty often?
I would try not to go over there too much.
Who was George living with at the time that he passed away?
Wait, Sarah?
And without getting into many details, what was your relationship like with Sarah?
We didn't really have a relationship.
Would it be fair to say you didn't get along with her?
Yes.
Back on February 23rd, 2020, did you have an occasion to talk to your brother on that day?
Yes, sir.
And when you spoke with your brother on that day, did you FaceTime with him or did you speak with him over the phone?
We talked on the phone.
Was that phone to your ear or was that phone?
It was on speaker.
And who was present?
My wife and my 2 kids.
And without telling us anything that George may have said to you, can you tell us what the topic of that conversation was?
We were just talking like we normally did. He just calling me to check on me, basically.
Now, in the background of that conversation on the evening of February 23rd, 2020, what did you hear?
Sarah's in the background yelling.
And you recognized her voice?
Yes.
What was she yelling about?
Something about choking or how he choked her. I really don't. That was it.
About how long was this conversation that you had?
Maybe 10 minutes, I think it was.
How did the conversation end?
Because she was yelling in the background, so that was it.
Did she sound upset?
She sounded upset.
Did you talk to your brother after that conversation?
No, that was the last conversation I had.
Have you ever spoken to Sarah since that conversation?
No.
I have no further questions.
Any cross-examination?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
In the beginning, when you started, it was hard for me to hear, but I know you were talking about other siblings, other family members that you had here. Could you repeat that for me, please?
Here in Orlando, I have one sister and 3 brothers.
Sister and 3 brothers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, did your brother George Torres, did he ever stay with you at any time?
No.
Would he ever live with you or any of, I mean, not you, but any of your other siblings?
No.
All right, sir. Let's go back to this phone call that you were talking about that was on February 23rd of 2020. And that phone call was approximately 7:30. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And who called who?
He called me.
And then y'all were talking. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when he called you, did you notice anything about his speech or his voice?
No, he was fine.
Sounded normal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So he wasn't slurring his words or anything like that?
No.
By the way he talked or what he talked to you about, could you tell at that time if he had been consuming alcohol?
No, because I knew when he would drink.
Okay. So in your opinion at that time, based on what you heard and what he was talking about, you do not believe he had been drinking alcohol?
No.
Now, you said you heard Sarah.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? How did you know it was Sarah?
I can tell her voice.
You recognized her voice. So you could hear her. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And you've heard Sarah speak before that time. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you've heard her speak on the phone before that time. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you said that Sarah was yelling. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
And she was yelling about, he's choking me. Or tell him about choking me.
Yes.
Okay. During that conversation, and you heard her say that, did you ask your brother, what is she talking about?
No, I did not.
Did that statement at that time, did that statement surprise you?
Not really.
You've heard it before?
No.
Based on Sarah's voice that you've heard, was it any indication to you that she had been drinking?
No.
No? Sir, at some point your brother said he had to go, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did he hang up on the conversation?
Yes.
And did he say bye and you say bye?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I don't have it. If I can-
You may, sir.
Sir, other than siblings, your mother and father, do they live in this area?
Yes.
Were there times that George would stay with them?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor.
This witness be released.
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense?
Actually, we'll keep them subject to recall, Your Honor.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
All right, sir. You're released subject to recall by either party. Thank you.
State would call Devin Jamro.
You have a raise your right hand, please. Please, you swear or affirm the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Sir, good morning. You can take a seat and please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Devin Jamro. That's DEVINJAMRO.
Thank you. You may inquire, sir.
Sir, who do you work for?
I work for Public Supermarkets.
And what is your position with public supermarkets?
I am the assistant store manager.
And at what location?
Currently at Castleberry location.
Were you at the location on Goldenrod and University Boulevard back in February 2020?
Yes, I was.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness which has been previously marked for identification as States D and been shown to defense?
D is in Delta?
D is in Delta.
Yes, you may.
Sir, I'm showing you it's been marked for identification as States D. Could you use these scissors and open this and look at the contents of this package to yourself?
Sure.
Sir, do you recognize those items?
I do, yes.
And tell us, what are these items?
These are Publix receipts.
Are these receipts evidence of transactions at Publix? Are they made at or near the time of each transaction?
They are absolutely made at the time of the transaction.
And is it in the normal course of business that Publix keeps these receipts?
Yes.
And these fairly and accurately appear to be the receipts from your Publix store?
Yep.
Your Honor, this time I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification that states D into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as states D will be received into evidence without objection to states 1.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been previously marked for identification as states J and shown to defense?
You may.
So I'm showing you it's been marked for identification as states J. Can you take a look at that disc?
Yes,
Do you see your initials on that disc?
I do.
Did you have an opportunity to look at that disc prior to coming to court this morning?
I did, yes.
And tell us, what is that disc?
This is CCTV footage burned from the camera system at the location.
And at Publix, is it the regular practice of Publix to utilize surveillance cameras?
Yes.
And in the normal course of business, are the videos from those surveillance cameras kept?
Yes.
And are these the cameras taken from February 23rd, 2020? And I believe there's 2 video clips included, one at 12:17 p.m. and another at approximately 5:39 p.m.
Yes.
And they fairly and accurately represent the surveillance video that was submitted from Publix to law enforcement in this case.
They do, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification that states J into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as states J will be received into evidence without objection to states 2.
And I have no further questions for this witness.
Any cross-examination? Can this witness be released?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You're released.
Thank you.
Have a great day. State, you may call your next witness.
State will call Joan Williams.
swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Ma'am, good morning. Could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
Okay, Joan, Joan Williams, Williams.
Thank you, ma'am. Counselor, you may inquire.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Can you tell us what it is that you do for a living?
I'm a 911 call taker at the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you held that position?
24 years.
And tell us, what are your duties as a 911 call taker?
I answer phones for an emergency, non-emergency, medical, we try to transfer to the medical side of the business.
And is it the regular practice of Orange County to record 911 calls?
All lines are recorded.
And is it the regular practice of Orange County to keep records of each of those 911 calls?
Yes.
And those records are made at or near the time of each call, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been previously marked for identification as states L and been shown to defense?
May.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been previously marked for identification as states L. Do you recognize this disc?
Yes. My initials.
Did you have an opportunity to review this disc prior to coming to court this morning?
Yes.
And those are your initials on the disc?
Yes.
And does this disc, does it fairly and accurately represent the 911 call that you took in this case on February 24th, 2020 at 12:59 hours?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as states L into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
It was pre-marked as states L will be received with no objection as states 3.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Any cross-examination?
No, sir.
Right. Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Can the parties approach momentarily?
I finally found shorts that enhance my curves.
We are watching the state of Florida v. Sarah Boone. This is the suitcase murder trial. We have had 3 witnesses called so far by the prosecutors after opening statements. This morning, we have so far heard from Juan Torres, the younger brother of George Torres, the victim in this case. We also heard from Devin Jamro, a Publix manager, and Joan Williams, 911 call taker with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Basically, they were witnesses to establish the legitimacy of evidence, like Publix receipts and surveillance video. And then from Joan, we just heard a moment ago talking about the 911 call. So these are things that we expect to see and hear as this trial moves along. We are nearing the noon hour here on Fox Local and likely nearing a break here in this trial. Let's go ahead and get you back inside the courtroom and see what we are about to hear from the judge. We know the attorneys are speaking with him at the bench right now. You are looking at Sarah Boone.
State, you may call your next witness.
State will call Vincent Battaglia.
Raise your right hand and be sworn. Please be swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Sir, you may be seated. After you're seated, if you can state and spell your name for the record for us.
Vincent Battaglia, Vincent Battaglia.
Thank you. Sir, you may inquire.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Can you tell us what it is you do for a living?
Right now I work for an auto parts company,
And where do you live?
New Jersey.
Back on February of 2020, where were you living at that time?
I was living at the Tealwood Apartments in Winter Park, Florida.
And what were you doing at that time when you were living at Tealwood?
I was enrolled in Full Sail University. I was in school.
When you were living at Tealwood, did you have any roommates?
Yeah, I had one roommate, Brandon. Yeah, that was it. Them.
That's Brandon Motes?
Yes.
Did you have neighbors?
Yeah.
Were you neighbors with Sarah Boone and George Torres?
Yes.
And approximately how long were you neighbors with them?
About a year, a little over a year. I moved there in January 2019.
And during the course of that year that you were neighbors with them, did you have occasion to interact with them at times?
Yeah.
In fact, did you ever go over to their home?
Yeah, like a couple times, yeah.
And I believe you tuned a guitar for a child there at the house?
Yeah.
this Tealwood apartment complex, how would you describe the walls that separated your units?
Thin, like very thin walls.
And with those walls being so thin, would you ever have occasion to hear arguing and yelling coming from Sarah Boone and George Torres's apartment?
Yeah.
How often would you hear this?
Almost daily.
Did Sarah Boone ever approach you about the things that you heard coming from their apartment?
Yes.
And where were you when she approached you?
I was smoking a cigarette on my back patio.
And approximately what time?
It was pretty late. I can't remember the exact time, but it was definitely anywhere between like midnight to 2 a.m., like right around there.
And do you remember how much before the date when the police called that this occurred?
A few months, like probably 4 to 5 months before that.
So 4 or 5 months before February of 2020.
Yeah.
And when she approached you on this late evening / early morning on that day, what did she tell you?
Pretty much just kind of like, if I do hear anything, like through the walls or whatever is out back, just kind of keep my mouth shut. Like, don't really speak about it or anything like that or say anything to anyone. And I just was like, okay.
Did she make any motions with her hands?
Yeah, like just kind of like, finger over the lips, like kind of shh, like keep it hush, like that kind of thing.
So she told you not to report anything you may have heard about arguments or yelling or fighting, anything going on over there?
Yeah.
Do you recall the evening of February 23rd, 2020?
I do, yeah.
And what about that evening sticks out to you?
That sticks out to me from that night was literally just there was a very, very loud noise that I heard that was loud and powerful enough to shake my bedroom wall. And I remember that because I was sitting on my bed on FaceTime with my girlfriend at the time, and I literally felt the wall shake and stopped me mid-conversation. And she even asked me through the computer, like, what was that? And I was like, I have no idea.
Did you hear any yelling coming from their apartment on that night?
Before that, yeah, like it was just arguing kind of stuff.
What was the last thing you heard?
The last thing I heard was like the loud noise and just a little bit of shuffling, and that was kind of it. It just kind of went silent after that.
Could you hear anything that was being said?
Not clearly, and it was never really anything clear. It was just like you could hear arguing back and forth, just kind of like and kind of like an I hate you, like it's whatever it is, whatever the argument was about kind of thing. At the time, that's really all it was, but it was never really clear enough to hear like the full argument. And honestly, I never really paid attention too much to it. If I heard it, I kind of stepped into my living room to be further away from it.
Did you hear both the defendant's voice and also George Torres's voice?
Yeah. All the time, it was like a back and forth. Yeah.
So other than the statements and the phrases of I hate you, you weren't able to discern the contents of this argument?
No.
What was the last sound you heard?
The last sound that I heard was like the loud banging noise that it was like a very odd sounding noise that I've never heard before this day, but it very much sounded like it was where my bed was positioned. It was kind of towards the back of the apartment, and it almost sounded like it was coming towards me, but like on the side of me, then it was just like a loud rumbling noise. Like that literally sounded like it was kind of far away from me, and then it like ended up like almost next to me. And like I said, the walls are thin, so like it's very easy to hear like through the walls, and not even just sideways. Like I hear my upstairs neighbor, like all around, very thin walls.
Now, was your bedroom, where was it located in your apartment?
The back of the apartment. So it was like, there's like a little kick out next to my patio, and that's like, that was my bedroom back there, like along the grass back there.
On the first floor?
On the first floor, yeah.
I have no further questions.
Any cross-examination?
Mr. Tagley, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, you said that you lived there next to Sarah Boone and George Torres for about a year?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware that the the police were called to their residence
Like,
while you were there for the year? Are you aware of any incident in which the police were called to their residence?
I had never seen anybody there, but I had had other neighbors in the complex tell me that it has been on multiple occasions. So that's why.
Just instead of what somebody else told you.
Yeah.
Just what you would observe. Did you ever, the year that you were there living next to them?
Yeah.
Were you ever aware that the police were called to their residence?
No, the times that I was home, I never saw any police at the apartment there.
And did you work odd hours or?
Yeah, and with my schooling and stuff too, I used to have class at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So all the time I was at random moments, like just not home throughout the day and night and stuff like that. So yeah.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not, based on your interaction with Sarah Boone?
I'm going to object.
Let me finish the question first, please.
Do you know from your experience with Sarah Boone and your experience with Jorge Torres that they drank alcohol?
Yeah.
Hang on.
I'll withdraw to that question.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Are you aware that they both consumed alcohol to excess?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hold on.
Yes, sir, of course.
Well, Vincent, I think you had testified, you may have given a statement to law enforcement,
Yes, it was one of the detectives.
a recorded statement?
Yes, I can't remember his name, but yes.
Okay, and I think it was on February 23rd of 2020.
Yeah, right around that time, yeah.
I believe you had said that,
I'm going to object as to improper impeachment.
Approach.
The lawyers have approached the bench discussing their legal issue with the judge.
Objection's overruled for now.
Some questioning, and the objection is.
sir, would it be fair to say on that day you got home around 7 p.m.?
7 p.m.?
Yes.
Which day was this?
Sunday, February 23rd, 2020.
No, that day I actually got home from work probably around 1 or 2 o'clock or so.
In the morning?
No, in the afternoon. I went to work that morning at around 5 a.m.
And you said that you heard the normal yelling and arguing at about that time when you got home?
No, it was around that time, but it was really around like 10 o'clock, 10:30 is when like the arguing I could really hear clearly. It was like around 10:30 at night.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you redirect?
Just very briefly.
Yes, sir.
So on cross-examination, you were asked about the arguing you heard, and I believe your testimony was that it was pretty intense around 10:30.
Yeah.
Approximately what time was it that you heard this loud crashing thump sound that you described?
Little after that.
Overruled.
It was a little after that arguing and stuff. It was probably around 11:15, probably 30, 45 minutes after like the arguing I could hear started.
No other questions?
Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Not subject to recall.
We would like him subject to recall. You guys know.
Okay.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. All right, sir. You are released, not subject to recall. Have a great day. Thank you.
The state would call Brandon Moats.
Bless you.
Raise your right hand, please. Shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you, sir. You can be seated. State and spell your name for the record for us.
Yeah, my name is Brandon Moats, BRANDON MOATS.
Thank you. Mr. Cacciatore, you may inquire.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell us how it is that you knew Sarah Boone?
I moved into the apartment next door to her when I was in college.
And so when was that you were in college?
I would have moved down here in 2019 and would have been there until like 2021, 2022.
So she was your neighbor at Tealwood Apartments, is that correct?
Yeah, it would have been Tealwood back then, yeah.
And did you have any roommates back then?
Yes, I was rooming with Vincent Battaglia.
And during that time, what were you doing?
Like,
as far as work and school?
I was just going to school. During the time of this, yeah, I would have just been going to school. I don't think I would have had my job yet. I was just a student.
Did you have much interaction with the defendant or with Jorge Torres in this case?
Honestly, I avoided them as much as possible usually.
The apartment where you lived, tell us, how would you describe the walls that separated the units?
Yeah, I remember that my bedroom was like the front-facing bedroom, and our walls shared a wall with where their staircase was. So like the way the apartments were laid out, we had a one-story apartment, they had a two-story apartment. So they had a staircase running right next to the walls next to like our bedrooms.
Would you ever have occasion to hear arguing and yelling going on inside of the defendant's apartment?
Yes, the walls were pretty thin. So if people were yelling, you could definitely hear it.
And how often would you hear arguments or disagreements going on over there?
When I first moved in, it was it was at least like once a week, to the point that I started tuning them out. Like I got good enough at just like not listening to them. They argued very, very often.
You know, neighbors, they pay a lot of money, for rent, mortgage, or whatever to live at. And people don't want to have to deal with having to hear that every day. People just arguing and fighting and arguing and fighting and getting drunk and walking the streets, You see how he's talking? He remembers everything. He said to the point that he had to numb them out. Interesting. Other people that's coming in, make sure you hit the like and feel free to engage. Resume.
Do you recall the evening of February 23rd, 2020?
Yes, sir.
And on that evening, could you hear arguing going on in their unit?
Not late into the evening, earlier into the evening, probably like 7, 8 o'clock that evening, probably earlier on, I could hear arguing.
And where were you inside of your apartment?
I would have been in my bedroom pretty much all night.
And your bedroom, just so that we can paint the picture, where would that would it have been, on the first floor or the second floor?
We had a first floor apartment.
Okay, so all the units were, or all the bedrooms were on the first floor.
Yeah, like I was saying before, we had a one-story apartment, and then they next door had like a two-story townhouse. So we only had the one floor.
Understood. And at a certain point in the evening, did you hear a loud crashing sound?
Yeah, probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock that evening.
And can you describe that sound for us in more detail?
I mean, yeah, literally, like I said, at like 10:30, 11 o'clock, it's the way their staircase was set up. I could, my bedroom, the top of their staircase would have been like above my ceiling, and it ends next to where like my roommate's apartment was. So I could hear something start above me super loud and then fall away from me like it was falling down the stairs.
Did this affect the walls that were between your two apartments?
Oh yeah, me and my roommate, I remember me and my roommate talking the next day about like we could literally, like, it shook both of our rooms.
Did you ever have occasion to talk with the defendant about what happened?
I never saw her after that. She would have, yeah, I never saw her after that happened.
No further questions.
Any cross-examination?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, you were asked by the state if you ever had any interactions with Sarah Boone or George Torres. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I think you said you tried to avoid them.
Yeah, I don't like drunk people, and they were drunk a lot, so I did not interact with them.
Do you remember this interaction with Sarah Boone in 2009 when you woke up and witnessed Sarah?
I would have been 9 years old in 2009.
I'm sorry, 2019. Good catch. In 2019, when you woke up and witnessed Sarah sleeping on the concrete patio.
Oh, this may have been a slight misconception in how I said this. I never woke up and saw her sitting on the patio myself. That I would have seen her on the patio eventually, but it's not like I woke up and went back and saw her on the patio. This was my roommate relaying the story that she had fallen asleep on the back patio, and then I saw her.
So you did not witness that yourself, or did you see her?
I saw her asleep on the back patio. I was just clearing up the sequence of events there.
Thank you. Another time, do you recall our interaction with Miss Boone when you were coming home from school and she was trying to talk to you and she seemed paranoid and rambling?
Yeah, I had gotten locked out of my apartment, so I was waiting on the steps waiting on the steps outside of my apartment for my roommate to get home. So she came up and started talking to me. I don't really remember too many details of what she was saying because I didn't want to talk to her. But yeah.
Okay. Do you remember saying that you believe Sarah was avoiding going into her apartment?
That's definitely the vibe. I don't remember what she was saying, but the vibe she was giving off was that she didn't want to go home.
I believe, and I just want to make sure that I heard you. You said that the first arguments, other than the Boom, which was 10 something, initially it was around 7 p.m. You heard arguing?
It would have, yeah, because it would have been. I remember that day I got home from class around 5 because I got out of class around 4:30 usually and walked home, so I would have gotten home around 5:30, and it would have been after I took, because I came home, I made myself lunch and I took a shower, and then I heard all of their arguing, so it would have been about an hour and a half, 2 hours after I got home, so around 7 to 8 o'clock.
Okay. And during that time, when you say arguing, was it back and forth?
Honestly, I wouldn't really be able to say if it was back and forth. I don't know I wouldn't remember too vividly if it was back and forth. Or if it was
Let me
just
ask you
one
this:
person
Did you
yelling.
hear a male voice?
Yes, I heard a male voice.
Did you hear a female voice?
Yes.
Okay. Were they both loud?
Yes.
Okay. If I can confirm, Judge.
Yes, sir, of course.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Subject to recall, Judge.
All right, sir, you're released subject to recall. Thank you. Can the parties approach?
All Americans are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens, the jobs they hold.
All right, we have now heard testimony from several witnesses that the state has called this morning. The last two were neighbors of Sarah Boone's, describing arguments that they would hear, interactions with Sarah Boone that they would have, and that kind of thing. We heard them both describe noises that they heard on the night of February 23rd, hearing some arguing, hearing later in the night then some sort of very loud noise that they described. One of them said it sounded like a loud rumbling noise. They said it shook the walls. One of the neighbors saying it shook their entire, it shook both of their rooms. And so that was some of the discussions of what they said they heard and experienced that night. Next door neighbors to the apartment where all of this happened, and next door neighbors of Sarah Boone. So let's go ahead and get you back inside the courtroom and continue listening in as we wait and see where things go from here. We have now had opening arguments this morning, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 witnesses called. It is now 12:20 in the afternoon on this Friday, and we will see what is about to happen next.
or use the internet to look at maps or pictures to see any place discussed during the trial. Jurors do not watch local news or read local newspapers. Jurors must not have any discussions of any sort with friends, family members, or even your fellow jurors about the case or the people and places involved. So do not let anyone make comments to you or ask questions about the trial. I want to stress again that just as you must not talk about this case face-to-face, you must not talk about this case by using an electronic device. You must not use phones, computers, or other electronic devices to communicate. Do not send or accept any messages related to this case.
This projection system up, and can we test it before we
Yes.
go live?
I'm getting ready to skip over so I can get to the next one because that's when they go into lunch break. So give me a second to find the point. Give me a second.
This projection system up, and can we test it before we go live?
Yes, sir. If you want to test it out, Mr. J.
Call 1 at 12:59 p.m. with a GMT offset of minus 300 minutes. Call on month.
Now we're getting into the ex-husband. If I'm correct, this is the part where the ex-husband comes in on the stand.
Jury enter.
State, do you recognize our jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, do you recognize our jury? All right, y'all can be seated. Thank you. Members of the jury, good afternoon. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. If you could, again, by a show of hands, confirm that you complied with the court's instructions that we gave prior to the break. Record reflect all jurors' hands have been raised. With that, the state is going to continue with their evidence presentation this afternoon. State, you may call your next witness.
State will call Brian Boone.
Mr. Boone, raise your right hand and be sworn, please. You swear or affirm the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. Sir, good afternoon. You could be seated. After seated, if you could please state and spell your name for the record for us.
Brian Boone, B-R-I-N, B-O-O-N-E.
Thank you, sir. You may inquire.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell us how it is that you know the defendant?
I dated her for quite a while, and then we eventually got married.
When you say you dated her for quite a while, how long are we talking?
I met her in the late 90s, and I believe it was around 2005 when we got married.
Did you have any children as a result of your marriage with the defendant?
Yes, we had one son.
And how old is that son?
He is currently getting ready to turn 14.
Did your marriage with the defendant last?
And no, it did not.
And approximately when was it that you separated and began proceedings for divorce?
Probably 2017, I'm thinking maybe.
And at that time, when was your divorce actually finalized?
Oh, maybe it was 2006. I think the divorce was 2017, I believe.
And after your divorce, what was your custody arrangement with your son that you had in common with the defendant?
She was supposed to have him on Mondays and Tuesdays. I would have him Wednesday, Thursdays, and then we'd alternate Friday through Sundays every other week.
So 1 week you would have 5 days with your son, and another week she would have 5 days with him.
Correct.
And was this still the same custody arrangement in February of 2020?
Yes.
And in February of 2020, did you have, do you recall the events that occurred, I guess, first on the late evening of February 23rd, 2020?
On that evening?
Yes.
Well, apparently Sarah called me at one point during the night.
Do you recall about what time she called you?
I think it was 11 something.
When you answered the phone, how did Sarah sound on the phone?
She sounded like she had been drinking, was pretty drunk.
Were you able to understand what the defendant was saying?
Somewhat, but she woke me up. I had work the next day. I was asleep when she called. She's done this before, calling me late at night, and generally I kind of just try to ignore it, so I wasn't really paying attention.
Who was she living with at the time?
Jorge Torres?
When she called you late that evening, could you hear George in the background at all?
Not that I remember, no.
Did you pay much attention to this phone call?
No.
Now, the following morning, on February 24th, 2020, did you begin to call the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And approximately what time did you begin to call the defendant?
I think it was like 11 o'clock or something.
And why was it that you were calling her?
Well, it was going to be Monday. I had him on Sunday and dropped him off at school, and I was calling to trying to find out if she was going to be actually picking him up that day.
Why would you have a question about whether or not she was picking him up?
She wasn't generally very good about actually getting him on the day she was supposed to.
So it was not uncommon for you to have to remind her to pick him up or to make sure that she was going to pick him up?
Well, I mean, remind or just find out if she was going to, or if she was just going to give him over to me as what happened.
Do you remember at what time on February 24th you actually got in touch with the defendant?
It was like 12:30 or something.
And when you actually got in touch with her, what did she tell you on the phone?
That George was dead, and if I would come over.
Did she say what happened to him?
I don't remember if she told me then on the phone or when I got there, but she told me they had been playing hide and seek and that she fell asleep.
What did you advise her to do?
I told her she needed to call 911 and that I would come over as soon as I could.
And this is on your first phone call here at approximately 12:30.
Yes.
On 2/24/20.
Yes.
Did she call you again while you were en route to her residence?
She did. She called to find out if I was still going to be coming over.
And when you spoke with her while you were en route, what, if anything, did you advise her?
I told her she needed to call 911 and told her I was on my way, but she needed to get somebody over there.
How long did it take you to arrive at her residence?
From the first phone call, or?
Yes, from the first phone.
Well, I mean, I live a minute or two drive away, but I had to get my puppy. We had just gotten a puppy recently. I had to get him in his crate and stuff like that and put something on because I was working from home. And total time, maybe 10 minutes.
When you arrived at her apartment, tell us what she told you when you arrived.
George was dead, and once again, I don't remember if she told me now or before that they had been playing hide and seek and she fell asleep. But I, at that time, told her again she needed to get 911 called to get somebody over there.
Had she called 911 at this point?
No, she had not.
So you've advised her now 3 times to call 911.
Yes.
Did you go inside of her apartment?
I walked in the front door into the little tiled area, like entranceway thing.
What, if anything, did you observe when you made it to that point?
Looking into the living room, I could see like the end of his feet and maybe a little bit of some legs that were kind of coming out around the backside of the kitchen area.
Did you continue to go into the apartment?
No.
Where did you go?
Sarah told me she was going to call 911 and go outside and have a cigarette and a drink and asked me to come out there with her. And I told her that I didn't really feel comfortable being inside. And I went out front and got in my car and waited for people to show up.
Did you witness the defendant call 911?
I think I was in there when she dialed it and first got somebody on the phone, but I wasn't there for the whole conversation. No, I was outside.
Did you stay there at the scene while police arrived?
Yes, I was there. I was part of it. I knew I'd have to talk to somebody, so.
Did you talk with law enforcement?
I did.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Judge, we want to reserve our questions for when we call him in our case.
Okay. All right, sir. You're subject to recall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as long as he remains under subpoena.
My understanding is subject to recall.
So somebody will contact me about that?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sarah, I know he's happy to be rid of you. It's probably the biggest nightmare being married to you. What is she writing over there? What is she writing? As you watch it, you'll see she lifts up the paper a few times and it's full of stuff. What is she writing? It's like she's writing a novel or something. Woman is a nut. All right, resume. All right, we have some more witnesses coming up. Yeah. Or what's coming up? We'll see what's happening next. I think next is the we'll see. Let's watch.
State, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, may we approach a moment?
Yes. Members of the jury, we'd appreciate your patience for a few moments while the state attaches a Bluetooth speaker so that they may publish some evidence that's been received so far. Mr. J, whenever you're ready, sir.
Permission to publish 3.
You may do so.
This 300 minutes, called on Monday, February 24th, 2020.
911, what is the location of the emergency? 4748 Brent Court, apartment 3. 4748, what's the street name? Brent, F-R-A-N-T-D. And the appointment.
I'm going to skip the 911 call because I believe all of us have heard the 911 call a few times and I played it and you can watch it from there, you know, the other time I did my past commentary. So we're going to get into more of the witnesses. I'm just going to let it play for now while I look for the next one we're going to go to. I'm going to let it play just for now.
Number 3. Is this a police or medical? My boyfriend is dead. Okay, then the line for the flight appointment will not hang up. That's good. 4748 Brent Lane, apartment 3. Brent
All right, we have another witness coming on. If I'm correct, this is the property manager. Property manager. Let's get it.
Sir, good afternoon. Could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
Abraham, Abraham. Last name is Moreno, Moriano.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated. Mr. Capshaw, you may inquire.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Tell us, what do you do for a living?
I'm a maintenance supervisor for apartment complexes.
Is that what your position was back in February of 2020?
Yes, it was.
And what apartment complex?
Tealwood Park Apartments.
And how long did you work for Tealwood Park Apartments?
About 2 years.
And tell us, what were some of your duties in your position there with Tealwood Park?
Daily, I cleaned the grounds, walked the property, answered maintenance calls, did emergencies, dealt with vendors.
Did you become familiar with the residents there at the apartment complex?
Yes.
Did you have occasion to meet the defendant in this case and also a Jorge Torres?
Yes.
Let me turn your attention to February 24th of 2020. Do you recall that date?
Yes.
And on that date, did you have occasion to come in contact with the defendant in this case?
Yes, I did.
And tell us, what was the circumstances in which you came into contact with her on February 24th, 2020?
I was called by the manager and the assistant manager to come to her unit. I believe she was already sitting outside at that time.
And when she was sitting outside of her unit, what, if anything, did you observe about her and about the unit?
The police was there. Her ex-husband was present. She was sitting outside, and that's when she decided she wanted to talk to me and the managers.
And what did she tell you?
That she's confused. She's not exactly sure what happened. She pointed out that she recalls that they were playing a game of hide and seek. There was an instance where you were going to teach him a lesson, and then she just doesn't recall anything else until the next morning.
Did she say she fell asleep?
Yes, she did.
Did she say things got out of hand?
I don't really recall that part, but I do recall her stating that they were playing their game and that George went into a suitcase, and I didn't ask any questions. I just let her talk for herself
How long was this conversation?
for about 4 or 5 minutes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, sir.
You may inquire, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
This conversation that you had with Miss Boone,
Yes.
that took place on the 24th. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who else was present on the time that the conversation was taking place?
Standing right next to me would have been Melissa Sexton and Eugene Harris, as well as the officer who was in front of the door.
Okay. So there was a law enforcement officer there that day. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, on the 24th is when you said that Miss Boone made this statement to you. Is that correct?
Yes.
They were playing hide and seek?
Yes.
And what else did she say happened?
She had told me they were playing hide and seek. They had drank. She was trying to teach him a lesson, and that was that. She went upstairs. She went to sleep. She woke up. She doesn't know what happened.
Okay. So that was on the 24th.
Yes.
All right. On the 26th, were you not interviewed by law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay.
I may have my days wrong, but it all happened on the same day.
All right. The 24th. Do you remember 2 days later that a Detective Scott Lowen conducted an interview with you at 4704 Lucia Court, Winter Park, Florida? You remember that interview?
Yes.
So that was 2 days later. Is that correct?
I would assume so.
Yes. All right. So when he interviewed you 2 days later, did you tell him about this statement that Miss Boone made to you that you just told this jury in court?
I did mention it to him.
You did mention it to him?
I mentioned to them that we did have a conversation.
Did you tell him the content of the conversation?
I may not have told him the whole content, but I did tell him we had a conversation.
All right. Well, what did you tell him? What content did you tell him on the 26th?
That they were playing hide and seek, that She was confused. She doesn't know what happened. I do believe I did mention to him the fact that she had said that she was trying to teach him a lesson. Not that anything was done with malice. I didn't say that at all.
So it's your recollection now today that on the 26th, you told Officer Lowen what you just told this jury. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Sir. In preparing for this case, did you have a meeting with the Assistant State Attorney on September 23rd of 2024?
Did I have a meeting?
Yes.
A brief chit chat over the phone.
A brief chit chat that was over the phone?
Yes, sir.
All right. At that point in time over the phone, did you tell him that Sarah Boone, the defendant, stated that she was teaching him a lesson and things got out of hand and that she fell asleep?
Yes.
Is that what you told him?
Yes.
Okay. And that was in 2024 of September the 23rd of this year, 2024.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you telling us that back on February the 26th of 2020, you told Officer Lowen at that time the same thing?
As I recall, yes.
So did she ever tell you how things got out of hand?
No.
Sir, you testified that you knew both Mr. Torres and Miss Boone, is that correct?
Yes.
You actually knew George Torres from a different time, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
When did you first know George Torres?
In the 1990s.
In the 1990s?
He was a teenager and he lived down the street from me and my wife.
So you had had a previous relationship with Mr. Torres?
No, not at all.
Not at all. You just knew him from then?
Yes, as I stated, he was a teenager and I was an adult.
Okay. During this time, though, that you became reacquainted with him, did y'all establish a friendship at that time here in Orlando?
I wouldn't say a friendship, but an acquaintance, yes.
Okay. Sir, on Monday, February the 24th, that would have been the day that you were with Ms. Sexton and Gene Harris.
Yes.
Out in front of the apartment.
Correct.
Did you talk to law enforcement that day?
No.
You did not talk to them that day?
I don't recall talking to him that day, no.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I don't have any, if I can confer.
You can, sir.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any further questions.
Any redirect examination?
Just brief.
All right, thank you.
Back in the 90s, when you had previously known George Torres, in this case, where were you living at that time?
I lived across the street. I lived on one block. He lived the next block over down in the middle.
In what city?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And when did you move from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania?
2018.
So in the intervening years, from your move from Philadelphia to coming to work at Tealwood Park, did you have any contact with George Torres?
No, as a matter of fact, I moved from that particular block in 2005. So I don't meet Judge again until I work at Tealwoods.
When did you start working at Tealwoods?
2018, 2019, roughly there.
No further questions.
Can this witness be released?
No, Your Honor, just subject to recall.
All right, sir. You'll be released subject to recall. Thank you.
Thank you.
State, call your next witness.
State will call Deputy Kayla Rodriguez.
Raise your right hand, please, sworn to swear or affirm the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am. You could be seated. Please state your name and spell it for the record if you could for us.
Kayla Rodriguez, Kayla, K-A-Y-L-A, Rodriguez, R-O-D-R-I-G-U-E-Z.
Thank you. Cashtor, you may inquire.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi.
you tell us did you work for?
Orange County Sheriff's Office,
And what is your position with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Deputy Sheriff.
And how long have you been a deputy sheriff?
A little over 8 years, since 2016.
And tell us, what are your duties as a deputy sheriff?
As a deputy, I respond to calls for service, anything from a over with call, like a car being keyed the day prior, or a 911 emergency.
And what type of training do you need to be a deputy sheriff?
So for me, I obtained my bachelor's degree from UCF in criminal justice in 2014. After that, in 2016,
I'm going to fast forward it again. Like I said, I'm just doing clips. Basically, they're going to get into the body cam. I think everybody have seen the body cam. If not, you can go back to my past commentary to see the body cam. So I'm going to let it play for a second, but I'm going to fast forward to the next one. I believe we're going to have more witness, something like that. Yeah. Oh, no. It's going to get into the pictures, the evidence. That's important. So we got to get to that one. All right. So I'm going to fast forward.
2016, I was hired by the sheriff's office. Right after being hired, I went straight into the academy. The academy is 5 months of training. We go over everything from case law, scenarios, defensive tactics, physical training. After that, I do 2 more months with the sheriff's office where we go specifically into policy related to Orange County specifically. After that, I do 3 months on the road with a trainer where we are evaluated periodically through that process. You have a partner, you respond to calls for service during that time, and you slowly learn how to handle calls by yourself.
Do you also undergo continuing training as a
You may be seated. State, do you recognize our jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, do you recognize our jury?
Yes.
Members of the jury, again, if you could please raise your hands, showing that you complied with the court's instructions during our last break. All right, the record reflect all jurors have raised their hands. State, you may call your next witness.
State will call Deputy John Martinez.
Sir, good afternoon. Can you state and spell your name for the record for us?
Deputy John Martinez, Johnmartinez.
Thanks, sir. You may be seated. Thank you. You may inquire, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Tell us, who is it that you work for?
Orange County Sheriff's Office,
And what is your position with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Deputy Sheriff.
How long have you been with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
I'm going on my 16th year.
Prior to working for the Orange County Sheriff's Office, do you have any previous law enforcement experience?
I do.
And where was that?
I first started my career with the New York City Police Department,
And how long were you with the New York City Police Department?
about 10 years.
And what was your position with the New York City Police Department?
I was a police officer.
And at the Sheriff's Office, tell us, what are some of your duties as a deputy sheriff?
Respond to calls of service. My primary function is the school resource officer.
And is continuing training a condition of your employment with the Sheriff's Office?
It is.
Tell us, how is it that you became involved in this case?
I was dispatched to this location.
And what was this location?
It was located at 4748 France Lane, apartment number 3.
And is that here in Orange County, Florida?
It is.
And when you responded to that location, who did you first come into contact with?
I came in contact with Ms. Sarah Boone.
Do you see Sarah Boone here in court today?
I do.
Could you please point to her and identify an article of clothing she's wearing?
The lady sitting in the middle with the black blazer.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witnesses identify the defendant?
Record will still reflect.
During the time that you were on the scene, did you have a body-worn camera?
I did.
And was that body worn camera activated?
It was.
Were all your contacts with Ms. Boone recorded on that body worn camera?
It was.
Were other deputies also on the scene at that time?
Yes,
And was Deputy Rodriguez there?
she was.
So would both of your body worn cameras both capture some of the same time frames?
Correct. Yes.
Did you have an occasion to go inside of the apartment?
I did.
And inside of the apartment, what observations did you make?
When I first entered the apartment, I noticed a Hispanic male laying on his back and looks like a small nook dining area. Later identified Mr. Jorge Torres.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been previously marked for identification as states K and been shown to defense?
You may.
Sir, I'm showing you it's been marked for identification as states K. Do you recognize that disc?
I do.
Tell us, what is that disc?
Is a copy of my body worn camera.
And does this body worn camera fairly and accurately depict the a portion of the events that took place on February 24th, 2020?
It does.
And are those your initials on the disc?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as states K into evidence.
Any objections? No objection. What was pre-marked as states K will be received into evidence without objection as state 7.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may. Madam Clerk, can you dim the lights?
They're coming out now. I'll get you somebody, okay? She wants to say something. I'm going to go on.
Don't know anything though, like why or how? So that's what we will not know the answer to that because we're not. So what's that? I'll have to phone up. Yeah, that'll be first thing tomorrow morning. I'll know a lot, hopefully a lot more tomorrow morning as far as him. But I cannot. There's no way I can say how, why. So just by looking at him, like why is it purple? That's normal. When someone passes away, but then he then.
Whatever you need to do, okay? And we'll talk about that more in the right? Yeah, you.
But like, I don't, like, this was totally like not intentional. Like, that's what I'm scared about too. Like
We'll have all the answers. We'll have a lot more info tomorrow. Like you said, what you're seeing here is common. This is us coming out. Yeah, it's no real medical history.
I know of.
We're not going to pass away. We come out.
I know. Yeah.
We come out to an investigation. This is what we did. If he was 75 years old and had a heart condition, we wouldn't be here.
I don't know what it is.
Exactly. And that's what we're here to find out. We're here to get the answer. The answer that you want, the answer that family
I
want.
really went to my desk to get those to my side. I mean, I know I can't go anywhere, but it's right. So do I just like sit out here and wait for you guys? Anybody else have you to show up or wait here that needs to be here? When I came here, that needs to be here, the medical examiners will show up when we call them, but we're not ready to know yet. So they're going to take him, they're going to take the photo, take him, but that's towards the end of it. And they'll be called well in advance when we're ready, but we're not ready to know at this point. So we won't be calling them quite yet. Okay? So like I said, I got to do some paperwork. They're going to chat with some people, and then we're going to come back and talk to you if you're okay with that. So just give us a little bit more time. Like I said, and go and do that. So, like, do you guys tell his family like today or after tomorrow? We have to. Once our investigation is pretty much complete here, once we leave here, we will be going to.
Again, we'll know. I'm not going to just go into it, but you know. Talk to you about it or anything like that.
But how, I mean, I understand what you guys and how you do it, and, you know, so, but like, what are you just telling them? What do you tell his parents? Like, what's the reason as to why?
We tell them what we know about them. We tell them.
And that we're gonna be waiting for the autopsy results, and I will get the autopsy in the morning, and hopefully the doctor will be able to give me some of what they think and see.
Their number, they can contact them, you know.
But yeah, they're gonna know what we're here, what we're investigating, and that we're still, they're gonna think I killed him. They always have said that. They always have said that. I told you, because I'm the blue-eyed white dragon, that's what they call me, because they don't want him with me. So he's basically just not really been around his family because he chooses me over them. Even after I encouraged him numerous times to go and see his family. Do you have somewhere safe that you can go tonight? Both my parents are deceased, my grandparents are deceased, my aunt and uncle are deceased. I got notice. I have a brother that's in the Marines, and I got another one that's in jail. Unless you find that Marine local, no. Well, he's in Altamont, but I think he's doing whatever Marine he's doing. But your phone's inside, correct? Yeah. Does he have a phone? No, he doesn't. He uses my phone. He uses the sheriff. So the only place I could go is over to Rock's house. So I don't think we have a problem with it. So, well, like I said, we're not gonna leave here. If you do not feel safe, you're not gonna leave here. We do not feel safe. And then we're like, and then so I in Philadelphia. Well, she's in Philadelphia because there's gonna be a funeral, right? That you're talking like days and no, I'm talking right here, right now. So let me get my notification. Let me go do this paperwork that I'm talking about because we can go back and forth about what it's like all day long. So I promise we're not gonna leave here for you and you're not gonna take. Please. I don't even know what to tell you. It's okay. Just take a seat, have some water, give us a few minutes, let us do our thing, and we'll be back to talk to you, I promise, okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
You have English, man?
There's nobody here this name.
Okay, that's fine. You're right there.
Yeah.
Okay, you're fine. I'm really coming.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
No, sir.
Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You're released, not subject to recall. Thank you.
Thank you.
State, may call your next witness.
State will call Melissa Roughgarden.
Looking for the perfect
State may call your next witness.
State will call Melissa Roughgarden.
Ma'am, good afternoon. Can you state and spell your name for the record for us?
Melissa Roughgarden, MELISSA
Thank you. Counselor, you may inquire.
Ma'am, who do you work for?
I'm employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
What is your position with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Currently, I am a forensic biologist with the forensics unit. Prior to this, I was a crime scene investigator for 5 years.
And how long in total have you been with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
About 6.5 years.
And tell us all the positions you've held during that time.
Those two, a crime scene investigator and a forensic biologist.
Let's turn to your work as a crime scene investigator. What does a crime scene investigator do?
We respond to crime scenes. We photograph and document those crime scenes through photographs, notes, and sometimes sketches. We collect evidence, we process the scene, and then we do further processing to the evidence back at our forensics lab.
When you say process evidence or process the scene, can you tell us what that entails?
It depends on the scene and the evidence, but it includes the photographs. We also take swabs for potential DNA. We can also do testing for possible blood and things like that. We also process for latent fingerprints, among other things.
What type of training did you need in order to become a crime scene investigator?
Upon being hired with the sheriff's office as a CSI, I completed a 16-week training program, which includes in-house processing, as well as going out to crime scenes with trained crime scene investigators to observe and then assist, as well as taking on calls with the trained crime scene investigator.
Approximately how many crime scenes have you processed in the course of your time as a CSI?
It would be hundreds. I don't know the exact amount.
Were you working in this capacity as a CSI on February 24th, 2020?
Yes, I was.
And tell us, where did you respond out to on that day?
I responded to 4748 France Court, Apartment 3.
And is that in Orange County, Florida?
Yes, it is.
And when you responded to that scene, whom did you make contact with?
I made contact with the homicide detective, Chelsea Kepsel.
Did you receive information from the detective?
Yes, that it was a death investigation.
Did you walk the scene with the detective?
Yes.
And tell us, what does it mean to walk the scene with the detective in a homicide?
We go into the scene and just observe. We don't interact with anything and discuss what we see.
When you walked this scene, did you see Jorge Torres?
Yes, I did.
Where was he located?
He was located on the floor in the living room of the apartment.
Did you, with the detective, identify potential items of evidence to be collected?
Yes.
You had mentioned previously about documenting scenes with photographs. Was that done in this case?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been marked for identification as States M and been shown to defense?
Okay.
Ma'am, I'm showing you who's been marked for identification as States M. Can you take a look at the contents of State M to yourself and tell me if you recognize the items contained within States M?
Yes.
You recognize the contents of States M.
Yes, I do.
Tell us, what is the contents of State M?
They are photographs I took on the crime scene.
Do they fairly and accurately represent how that crime scene appeared on February 24th, 2020?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as States M into evidence.
How many photographs are there? Do you have a total?
111.
No objection.
All right. What was pre-marked as States M will be received into evidence without objection as States 8.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may.
Your Honor, do we have the lights dimmed?
Yes.
Now, this is going to be interesting. Very interesting. Everybody watch.
And I'm first going to publish to you as part of States M. Picture photo number 4. Tell us, what is this?
This is the front door to the residence.
States 5.
This is also the front door of the residence, just a closer image to the door.
When you enter the residence, what is the first area just off to the right of the front door?
That would be the kitchen.
Showing you it's been marked as States 11.
Yes, so this is just inside the door. To the right, there is the kitchen area.
Showing you States 14.
Yes.
What is this photo of?
So this is the counter with the sink in the kitchen, and there's also the open area just above where you can see into the living room.
Showing you States composite Photo 19.
Yes.
What is this?
This is a hutch inside the kitchen. You can see in the background, that is where that first photo of the kitchen was taken. So that's the entryway. And then this is the hutch, and there is a cell phone on the hutch in the kitchen.
Showing you stage 22.
This is the trash can in the kitchen. You can also see the hutch we were just looking at there on the side.
Stage 23.
This is the contents of the trash can. You can see 2 wine bottles on the top of the trash.
Did you also find receipts in that trash can as well?
Yes.
Photo 25 from the composite.
These are those same wine bottles and 3 Publix receipts that were removed from the trash can.
Did you take these items and collect them into evidence in this case?
Yes, I did.
Photo 32 from the composite.
Yes, this is just in further into that entryway. You can see the living room.
Photo 35 from the composite.
This is another photo of the living room. You can see the victim located on the floor and a suitcase in the bottom corner of the photograph.
Photo 36.
This is another photograph in the living room. This is that wall we saw in the kitchen there with the opening. You can also see a wooden baseball bat leaning against the wall.
Was that baseball bat collected into evidence in this case?
Yes, it was.
Photo 38.
This is, excuse me. This is also a photograph of the living room, just the other side of the room.
Photo 43 from the composite.
Yes. This photograph was taken in the living room. You can see the stairs leading to the second floor.
Photograph 45.
This is a photograph of the living room just from the other side of the room. You can see the front door in the middle back of the photo.
Photo 49 from the composite.
This is a more close-up photograph of the suitcase.
Photo 50.
This is a photograph of one of the zippers on the suitcase.
Photograph 51.
This is a close-up picture of that same zipper. There is no zipper pull on it. It appeared to be a small wire of some sort, the pink wrapped around the zipper. This is the zipper on the other side of the suitcase.
Just for the record, that's photograph 52. States 53 from this composite.
The close-up image of that same zipper, there was also no zipper pull on that one.
Photo 54 from the composite.
This is the contents of the suitcase after just lifting the lid.
Photo 56 from the composite.
More of a close-up image of the items. There were miscellaneous papers and paperwork, some clothing items, and apparent blood inside the suitcase.
What items, what apparent blood was inside the suitcase?
It was observed on the white cap and a necktie, and there was also visible blood just on the interior of the suitcase.
Photo 57 from the composite.
The contents of the suitcase, but you can see the white cap more clearly and the blood observed on it.
'58 from the composite.
You can see the necktie with blood. It appeared to be silver multicolored. And then there's also a diazepam syringe in the plastic casing there. It was prescribed to the victim.
Photo 61 from the composite.
That is the miscellaneous papers and paperwork that was removed from the suitcase.
Photo 62 from the composite.
That's the suitcase after all of the items were removed.
Photo 64 from the composite.
Yes, that is what appeared to be some like small pieces of paper that appeared to be soaked with blood.
Is this inside of the suitcase?
Yes.
Photo 65 from the composite.
That is the baseball bat that was leaning against the wall in the living room.
Photo 68 from the composite.
This is back to the stairs to the second floor in the living room.
Photo 69 from the composite.
So it's moving closer to the stairs to the second floor.
Photo 70 from the composite.
Photographing more of the staircase. These are the steps leading to the second floor before I proceed up to the second floor.
This is photo 71 for the record. Photo 72 from the composite.
The upper portion of the stairs leading to the second floor.
How many bedrooms were on the second floor of the unit?
There were 2 bedrooms.
Photo 75 from the composite. What is this?
This is the hallway. You can see a closet in the hallway and then the door to one of the bedrooms.
Does this appear to be a child's room?
Yes, it did.
Photo 79 from the composite.
This is a photograph within the child's bedroom.
Photo 86 from the composite.
This is the door leading to the other bedroom upstairs.
Did this other bedroom also contain a bathroom?
Yes, it did.
Photo 90 from the composite.
This is the bed within that bedroom.
Photo 97 from the composite.
This is the bathroom.
In that master bedroom upstairs.
Yes.
Did you also have an occasion to photograph the defendant?
Yes, I did.
You see the defendant here in court today.
Yes, I do.
Could you please point to them and identify our article of clothing they're wearing?
She is right there with a black blazer and a pink shirt.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witnesses identify the defendant?
Record so reflect.
Showing you photo 98 from the composite.
This is the photograph I took of the defendant.
Why is it that you are photographing the defendant at this point?
I collected her buccal swabs, which is a DNA standard from the inside of the mouth, and it is part of our procedure to photograph that person for identification purposes.
Do you also document the rest of her body as well at that time?
Yes, I did.
Publishing photograph 101 from State's composite.
This is a photograph of her hands facing upward.
Photograph 102.
This is her right hand facing upward.
Photograph 103.
Her left hand facing upward.
Photograph 104.
Both of her hands facing downward, so the tops of her hands.
Photograph 105.
This is her right hand facing downward.
Photograph 106.
And her left hand facing downward.
Photograph 107.
This would be of her right arm.
Photograph 108.
Her left arm.
Photograph 109.
Her right arm with it facing upward.
Photograph 110.
Her left arm with her arm facing upward.
During the time you were interacting with the defendant, did she ever indicate to you that she had any injuries?
No.
You had previously testified that you also collected physical items of evidence from the home as well in this case.
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness what's been marked for identification as state C and been shown to defense?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm assuming it was remarked for identification as state C. Can you take a look at that package for me?
Yes.
Do you recognize that package?
Yes, I do.
And tell us, what is that package?
These are the 2 wine bottles that were collected from the trash can.
Is your name on that package?
Yes, my name is on the Orange County Sheriff's Office evidence label that I filled out, and my initials are on the evidence seal from when I sealed the package.
And it also has your agency case number and the location information for this case.
Yes, that is correct.
Ma'am, could you open the contents of States C and look at it to yourself?
I have to pull them out to recognize the item. They're wrapped in paper.
Sure, just have a view from before. What is the contents of State C?
These are the 2 wine bottles that I collected from the trash can.
Are these wine bottles in the same or substantially the same condition as they were at the time that you packaged them on February 24th, 2020?
Yes, the same time I collected them that day.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as States C into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as State C will be received into evidence as States 9 without objection.
And Your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may do so.
You can unwrap it now. You can put it back. Did you also have occasion to collect the baseball bat from the living room?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who has been previously marked for identification as States D and shown to defense?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as States D. Can you take a look at this item?
Yes.
Do you recognize this item?
Yes, I do. This is the wooden baseball bat I collected from the living room.
Does this item have your name on it?
Yes, it has my name on the Orange County Sheriff's Office evidence label that I filled out, as well as my initials on the evidence seal.
It also has your initials and your agency case number as well.
Yes, it does.
Ma'am, could you open States B and look at the contents of it to yourself without displaying it to the court?
Yes.
What is contained within States B?
The wooden baseball bat.
And is that bat in the same or substantially the same condition as it was at the time that you collected it on February 24, 2020?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as States B into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as B will be received into evidence as States 10 without objection.
They were seriously popping bottles.
You see that, right? You see that, yeah.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may.
Some super winos.
See, Jeff, there go that bat. Why is there a bat?
So she can hit home runs on his head.
This woman is pure evil. She's just pure evil.
You also had an occasion to collect the suitcase as well in this case.
Yes, I did.
Prior to placing the suitcase into evidence, did you process it?
I took measurements of the suitcase.
What are the measurements of the suitcase?
It was 28 inches in length, 20 inches wide, and 8 7/8 inches deep.
Your Honor, at this time, may the witness step down from the stand and approach the clerk's area.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as States A. Tell me, do you recognize this item?
Yes,
Tell us, what is this item?
this is the suitcase I collected from the living room.
And how is it that you know that this is a suitcase you collected from the living room?
It has the Orange County Sheriff's Office evidence label that I labeled with the item description. It also contains my name and the agent's case number, and my initials are also on the evidence tape.
Ma'am, at this time, could you open States A and look at the contents of it to yourself?
Yes.
What is inside of States A?
This is the suitcase I collected from the living room.
And does it appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as the time that you collected it and placed it into evidence?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's been marked for identification as States A into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as A will be received into evidence without objection as States 11.
And Your Honor, at this time, I'd ask for permission to publish States A to the jury.
You may.
Can you open the inside of it? how easy is it to operate the zipper that closes the suitcase?
It was a little difficult.
I have no additional questions at this time.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are you also referred to as a medical examiner investigator as opposed to just crime scene investigator?
No, that is not my title.
Do you do reports that the crime or that the medical examiner necessarily relies upon in the process of doing the autopsy and additional investigations?
You would have to ask them.
Who makes the decision at the scene as to what items will be photographed and what items will be taken into custody, what items will necessarily be tested or analyzed?
That's a collaborative effort between the crime scene investigator and the lead detective while on scene.
That would be yourself, and who was the lead detective?
The lead detective was Chelsea Kepsel.
Now, you authored a report in this matter, did you not?
Yes,
And that report was utilized, if you in fact know, by the medical examiner in developing her autopsy report, was it not?
I do not know.
In your report, did you advise the medical, or whomever might read your report, that in fact the body had been removed from the suitcase by first offenders or first responders?
No, I don't believe so.
And we know that you have the capacity to do DNA analysis, correct?
No, we process DNA or collect swabs for DNA, and then that's submitted to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for conventional DNA analysis.
You did that with a sample from the inside of Sarah Boone's mouth.
Her buccal swabs were submitted to the FDLE.
And who made that decision?
The detective and I.
Who made the decision not to bother to do a DNA analysis on the blood from the items within the suitcase or the suitcase itself?
That was a discussion between the detective and I.
And you chose not to do that.
No, we did not.
You assumed the blood inside the suitcase belonged to Jorge Torres, correct?
There was blood observed in the suitcase.
But you don't know who that belonged to because you didn't bother to analyze it or have it analyzed, correct?
The blood was not tested.
Now, State's Exhibit B, the bat, you took that into evidence. Was that again a collaborative decision by yourself and the lead detective?
Yes.
And what efforts did you make to have the bat analyzed, given the fact that it was apparently evidence?
It was just collected as evidence from the scene.
Did you advise either the lead detective or anybody else involved with this investigation that there may be matters that could be analyzed when analyzing the bat that would help or assist in the investigation of this matter?
It's my job to do the documentation and the collection of evidence.
You said it was a collaborative effort between yourself and the lead detective, so did you participate in that decision?
We chose to collect the bat and put it into evidence.
And so there was a fiber analysis done on the bat to determine whether or not it was used to strike Jorge Torres when he was in the suitcase, was there not?
Pardon?
In fact, there was not, was there? There was no effort to analyze the bat.
I'm going to object. I don't believe the witness had an opportunity to answer the question.
Sustained.
I'm sorry. Please,
Can you repeat the question?
if I can remember it, I will. Do you know that there was any effort made in this particular investigation, the investigation of Sarah Boone, to analyze the bat for fibers?
No, there was not.
And why was that not done?
It was not done.
You indicated that you had some interaction with Ms. Boone, is that correct?
I collected her buccal swabs.
Did you speak with her?
In collecting her buckle swabs, yes.
Did you speak to any other witnesses?
No.
Did you make any determination of other matters that might be of import or evidentiary value when you were going through the house and taking photographs and documenting the interior of the townhouse?
You'll have to be more specific.
Well, how many pictures of the child's bedroom did we see?
Here today,
Yes, ma'am.
we saw the entrance to the bedroom as well as a photograph of the interior of the bedroom.
What was the evidentiary value of that?
It's my job to photograph and document while on scene. So the rooms in the upstairs were photographed and documented.
Did you photograph holes in the wall, possibly made by the victim?
I don't recall photographing holes in the wall, no.
Did you take photographs of items within the house or throughout the house that may have depicted incidents of prior violence?
You'll have to be more specific.
How about bloody pillowcases? Did you make any effort to collect and analyze pillowcases of the rooms that you were photographing?
No.
You have significant experience with zippers?
I use zippers regularly, yes.
Enough to have an opinion as to whether or not a zipper is stuck or not.
Is what? Sorry?
You testified on direct that the zipper was a little tight.
Just that it was difficult without the zipper pulls to use the zipper.
And that was your opinion.
Yes, from opening the suitcase here today.
Today, you only tested it today?
Pardon?
You only today have for the first time tested the ability to pull open the zipper on the suitcase?
No, I'm saying it was difficult today.
A redirect examination.
Yes, Your Honor. In this case, you documented the entirety of the house as you saw it.
Yes,
So every room in the house,
they were all taken overall photographs.
walls in the house.
In the overall photographs, yes, they weren't all individually photographed, no.
And you did not document or note any type of holes in the wall or any type of damage to the walls, anything like that.
Not the walls, no.
Is that something that would have been documented both photographically and also within your report?
Yes,
You also, as we've previously seen in the composite, saw the victim where he was laying in this case, correct?
yes,
Was the victim, did he have blood on his mouth and on his face?
yes, he did.
Did he have open wounds on his body?
There was blood coming from his nose and his mouth. There was also some other areas, like defects noted on his body.
You also made contact with the defendant too, as well.
Yes,
Did you note any other wounds or cuts or anything else that was not documented that you haven't testified to?
no,
So no wounds, nothing on her.
not that I recall, no.
No further questions.
Thank you. Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Rollins, can this witness be released?
Judge, we'd like her to be on call.
Subject to recall, ma'am. Thank you. Can the parties approach?
It's about to end soon. Just a few more minutes.
The attorneys discussing with the judge right now as we are nearing the 5 o'clock hour. Over the last little bit, very interesting to see a number of evidence presented in this case, the crime scene photos, the wine bottles that we've heard about, the baseball bat that we've heard about, and perhaps biggest of all, the suitcase that we have not only heard about, but we have seen in that
Members of the
video.
jury, thank you
Let's
so
get
much
back
for your
inside that
attention in
courtroom.
this matter. It is 4:52. At this time, we're going to go ahead and take our recess for the evening. Madam Clerk has letters that I have signed regarding your jury service for you to provide to your employer. Court deputy will provide them to you in the deliberation room before you are released for the day. I have a similar instruction to read to you that I gave you before the lunch hour. Jurors, you must not conduct any investigation on your own. This includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all to get information related to this case or the people and places involved in this case. This applies whether you are in the courthouse, at home, or anywhere else. You must not visit places mentioned in the trial or use the internet to look at maps or pictures to see any place discussed during the trial. Jurors, do not watch local news or read local newspapers. Jurors must not have discussions of any sort with friends, family members, or even your fellow jurors about the case or the people and places involved. So do not let anyone make comments to you or ask questions about the trial. I want to stress again that just as you must not talk about this case face-to-face, you must not talk about this case by using an electronic device. You must not use phones, computers, or other electronic devices to communicate. Do not send or accept any messages related to this case or your jury service. Do not discuss this case or ask for advice by any means at all, including posting information on an internet website, chat room, or blog. With that, members of the jury, I'm going to release you back to the deliberation room for you to receive the paperwork for your employer, and we will see you at 9 a.m. this coming Monday, October 21st. And I thank you for your sacrifice and your service.
Well, you can see the judge there standing, everyone standing as the jury is excused for the day and for the weekend. 9 a.m. Monday is when the
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's just the recap of day one. Yeah, day one of the trial, because before was the pre-trial hearing. So now it's the trial. All right, so stay tuned for some more. I'll probably doing more coverage tomorrow to see the recap of Monday. And also, there's another trial that's going to be starting soon. Let me see if I can show you here. This wicked woman right here, Courtney Clinny. I can't pronounce it. Oh yeah, she's about to go to trial, and I'm about to cover that one. She had a pre-trial hearing too. Yup, she killed the boyfriend. Yeah, we got another one. So I guess we're gonna be dealing with a lot of evil women that like to kill their boyfriends. You're supposed to love them, but you're killing them. She killed him, stabbed him. Then we got this one here. Put her boyfriend in a suitcase. Wow, interesting. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of it. Everybody have themselves a great and a safe and I see you. Oh, when is Clean's trial? Have they set a date? I don't know for sure. I'm gonna cover the because they had a pre-trial motion hearing, so I wanted to watch that when I get a chance to watch. I guess they should be saying when the when the date is. I'm not too sure, but yeah, that's gonna be very interesting. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody has such a great and a safe and a blessed one and a moment of silence for Mr. Jorge Torres.